My name is David Gentry, president of Good Things Small Packages. I have the privilege of interviewing Marlon Barbour, who overcame a horrible childhood on the streets of Baltimore and Philadelphia to become the author of Be More, a motivational speaker and role model. In this first part of our interview, Marlon describes his childhood and how he became, in his own words, a wreck of a child by the time he got to high school.
The violence, the corruption, the degradation, the poverty, and the barbaric mindset of a group of people, quote-unquote minorities, that city, Baltimore, Maryland, a.k.a. Murderland. That city, Philadelphia, which is only 2 hours away, that I also grew up in after the age of 18 and became a man in, is a twin city as far as a legacy of gun violence, of the catastrophic amounts of heroin that trafficked through that city. The epidemic has plagued Philadelphia as well as Baltimore. Single-parent family homes, 80 to 85% of us who grew up in our environment grew up without a father figure. Low income, latchkey children, poor academic infrastructure in the school system, as well as a very bad political infrastructure that has trickled down into the communities as far as funding goes, as far as avenues for us to be able to go and play, recreation, books, and different things that would have helped us to become more intellectual and to become more educated. Poor policing system that oftentimes it didn't service us, because a lot of times by the time they showed up, the violence would have already manifested into one of the worst and most dire situations. Growing up in this environment where a lot of my role models, because I didn't have a father, were drug dealers, hustlers, scam artists. Having two brothers as well who, by the time I was 7, were out of the house. Both of them becoming heroin addicts, being plagued with that kind of curse. You know, it did a lot to me as far as my self-esteem, because I had also 3 sisters in the house and didn't really have a male figure. You know, young men who don't have, you know, strong community male figures, people that they can look up to, people that can help to give them advice, an environment that invited and that wooed and lured young men as well as young females into very deprivating, very sick and very diabolical and evil, cynical situations.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's say high school age. Like, well, what were you like then?
Well, by the time I had gotten to high school, you know, by the time I got to high school, I had probably been in about 6 or 7 placements. Those being juvenile detention centers, shelter homes, group homes, mm-hmm. and foster homes. Mm-hmm. You know, I was somewhat of a wreck. Experiencing a lot of different kind of mood swings. Mm-hmm. Suffered with a lot of different levels of anger issues. Mm-hmm. Low self-esteem, disillusionment, and just a lack of self. Mm-hmm. Of not knowing myself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Only realizing and understanding that I was somewhat a victim of my circumstance. Although I was fighting tooth and nail to try to free myself from that past, from that history of institutionalization.
Even when you were in high school, as early as that?
Yes.
in your life.
Yes.
Now, what role did the basketball in high school play in your life?
Well,
when you looked at yourself, how did that change you?
Well, they say that your gift will make room for you. That for every disadvantage, as some of the great speakers and philosophers would say, for every disadvantage there is an equal or greater advantage that can change a bad situation into a good situation. And for me, basketball was the great equalizer. Mm. It allowed me to leverage all of the negatives in my life. It, like other different forms of exercise, mm-hmm. It allowed me to relieve stress. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was something that I was good at. Mm-hmm. So instead of me being tolerated for my inadequacies and my flaws and my past history of institutionalization, mm-hmm. and being an orphan or a ward of the court, which my caseload mm-hmm. said whenever mm-hmm. I got put in front of a judge, basketball allowed me to put on a whole different face. Mm-hmm. It allowed me to be part of a brotherhood. Mm-hmm. It allowed me to have access to other young males mm-hmm. who oftentimes came from better environments. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to get certain things out of them that I was not able to get from my biological brothers. Mm-hmm. I was able to get certain things out of my coaches that I was not able to get from my father mm-hmm. or my brothers mm-hmm. or the men in my community, mm-hmm. which so oftentimes need to be there in their communities to help to be a part of the background and the general fabric of the community, to help the community be safe, to help right. people flourish, mm-hmm. to help to enhance socialization in the community. Mm-hmm. That is the position that we as men must take. Mm-hmm. And so having that fraternity as far as my teammates, having that coach or those coaches, one most specifically, two I should say, one being Coach Art Gamazon, and then another one being Jelani Ghana, who is not only was a coach for me and helped me at a very pivotal moment in my life, a very challenging period in my life in which I was sat down from NCAA Division II because of some of the traumatic emotions that I experienced on the basketball court that I wasn't able to digest, and I wasn't able to rationalize very well, because I was still, although I was on the basketball court, experiencing
sure.
Circumstances and emotions of being a victim mm-hmm. when I was a child. So even, like I said, in high school and in college, some of the emotions and some of those experiences were still laying dormant mm-hmm. until they were challenged mm-hmm. In my subconscious, mm-hmm. waiting to erupt, mm-hmm. to evolve, like a Coca-Cola can of Coca-Cola, which if you shake it long enough, and it's going to eventually erupt once you pull that lid back. Yeah. And so basketball was able to give me all of those different tools that I was able to use in life to open door and to access other opportunities, and as well as it allowing people to look at me as something of a value. Mm-hmm.
And you were a value.
An asset.
You were a value.
Rather than being a liability.
You were a value, but you were not only a value to the basketball team and the school. I mean, from what I understand, you became a star. But you began to see the value in yourself. I mean, you saw the value.
Exactly.